Okay. If we're saying the Pledge of Allegiance right now, are you able to hear me? Mhm. Okay, cool. All righty. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Joe. All right. All right. Okay. Bye. All right. Um, yeah, I'm thinking what we're gonna do is mute. here, turns green.
Nothing much, nothing much.
Hey.
You're working hard.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, we are seniors, so.
No, it's that kind of year.
This is Aaron. I don't know.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Santa Fe Public School Board of Education meeting on October 10th, 2024 at 5:30 PM. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, acknowledgement of tribal land, and then approval of the agenda. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el símbolo de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas. We acknowledge that our Board of Education meeting is taking place on occupied indigenous land. We acknowledge the Tesuque Pueblo lands and other tribal lands on which we stand. We honor these people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the history and ongoing colonization of where we are sitting right now in New Mexico and in our country. We acknowledge our own place in the story of colonization. Okay, thank you. Introduction of the interpreter.
Para asistencia de traducción en español, la señora Rivera te ayudará.
Thank you. And the approval of the agenda, Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Abeta, members of the board, those in the audience. I would ask if we could reverse our school board showcase this evening, since the band is outside ready. If we could have Santa Fe High Band go first, and then our guests from Aspen go second.
Sounds good. Any other changes to the agenda?
No other changes.
Anything from the board? Can I have a motion regarding the agenda?
Mr. President, I move to approve the agenda with the noted change.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, so let's go hear from the Santa Fe High School Band.
Let's do it.
Okay, so that was amazing. I mean, truly, what a great band. And the uniforms, I remember when we discussed uniforms a while back, they look
Yep.
great. So
The
that
uniforms
was-
are beautiful.
That was awesome.
Really.
Thank you.
It was. Go
Okay,
Santa
so
Fe
we've
High.
got Aspen School next.
Thank you, Board President Tabeta. Taking us through tonight's presentation on a program at Aspen is Bridget Love. She is our directing principal there, and our executive director of special ed, Mr. I'm tired. It's been a week. So I apologize. Jeff. Mr. Pinkerton, that shows you how tired I am because we just spoke in my office. So, Miss Love, please take it away.
Okay. Board President Abeyta, board members, and Superintendent Chavez, my name's Bridget Love, and I'm excited to be here as the principal of Aspen Community School to showcase one of our outstanding special programs at Aspen, the Kiva Transition Program, and we have a video to show you. Is it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
While they're hooking this up, good evening, board and superintendent. I wanted to kind of tell you what has been going on. This is National Disability Employment Month, and this is where a lot of national entities are looking at providing employment for special needs students as they come into the workplace. And the National Park Service and the Bureau of Land Management contacted me a couple of months ago to make a video, and that went live with all of their employees across the country this last week. And it's on providing employment and how do we provide opportunities especially in the national parks, and how we could better serve our students. It was a great opportunity to bring up some of the programs that we already are doing in Santa Fe Public Schools with Jose. I know you've heard about his programs, and Kiva was one of the things that we brought up as well. That was a video, it was a 30-minute presentation that went to their employees this week. So
Mr. Pinkerton and Principal Love, if you can just start walking us through it. It's
Sure.
our error. We didn't send it and attach it to the agenda, so we apologize.
That's okay. So the Kiva program is the Keeping Independent Visions Alive program, and it's a post-secondary transition program for students with disabilities who range from age 18 to 22 years old. Kiva was designed to support a student's transition from high school into the adult working world, and many of our students are really focused on going into specific careers. The Kiva program provides training related to employment, community involvement, and independent living for our students through an experiential instructional model that's really based in the community, not just the Aspen community, but the city of Santa Fe as well. In the Kiva classroom, Aspen students work towards their own individual goals in reading, writing, math, and then again towards their own career readiness. And all of those are integrated with real-world experiences. The classroom I really encourage everybody to visit. It's one of these remarkable classrooms where students are supporting each other as peers, but they're also instructing each other and sharing all of their individual strengths and gifts as part of the instructional model. Many of our Kiva students also work in our elementary school classrooms. They come in and they assist students and they help teachers with tasks, and they do that on a weekly basis. But the true heart of the Kiva program is that community partnerships, which allow our students to have really hands-on experiences to prepare them for their careers, to build the independent living skills, and to just enhance that involvement, visibility, inclusivity in our Santa Fe community. So we have community organizations that come into our school, and I'm going to list some, but it's kind of the tip of the iceberg. These programs are coming in on a regular basis. Wiseful New Mexico, Assistant Dogs of the West, Planned Parenthood, Resolve New Mexico, New Vistas. We have art classes with Site Santa Fe, II, and the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. They work with Cooking with Kids. They do yoga in schools and an organization called High Country Supported Living. In addition to that, we do field trips out. Weekly field trips bring our Kiva students to the public library to practice martial arts every week at the Kempo 5.0 dojo on Airport Road. Our students do field trips to restaurants. They go to the movies at Violet Crown. They go to various businesses, galleries, museums. And this allows students the opportunity to practice real-life financial skills, transportation, and that independence. Oh, great. Our video's coming up. Yeah, I love these kids. I just smile when I see these slides. We're really so proud to be the home of the Kiva program, and for everything that our students bring to our community school. This video really can only begin to capture the richness of the program and the relationships, the learning, and the connections that our amazing teachers, Allison and Victoria, facilitate. So we can watch the slides. It's not very long. Now I wish I had put music on it or something, but that's okay.
Mr. Pinkerton, did you want to add anything? See, I remembered your name.
Thank you. I agree with what Bridget said. If you ever have a chance to go to Aspen and go to Kiva, you should really see this and see these kiddos in action. A lot of times these parents come to Bridget and to Allison, and they're not quite sure that they want their students to fully be immersed in the community. So this is a wonderful transition program that allows them to kind of step foot out in the community, but have a little more support than what some of our other job preparation programs. And so it's just kind of an extra, it's an extra support system, and teaches them to ride the bus, to get around, to participate. And through all of this, it's piquing their interest, and then they can go and pursue jobs. And a lot of these agencies around Santa Fe are really helping to involve kids and involve these students and offering them opportunities. So
Appreciate
they do
that.
a great job.
Mr. Pinkerton, and board members will send this to you in an email as well, just so you can have in your files. But want to thank you both for coming out and sharing this wonderful program that you host. And if any board members would like to visit, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Okay. The next item on our agenda is our public forum.
Thank you, Board President Abeta. No individual signed up or submitted anything through email, so no public forum this evening.
Okay, so that brings us to our action items, and our first item is Resolution 2024-25-6, Reimagine Middle Schools Education. And I'd like to read into the record a statement that Vice President Noble sent to me earlier today that she would like for me to share. I want to extend a huge thanks to Dr. Garcia and the Reimagining team. I hope my fellow board members will vote to pass the resolution being considered this evening. We have an opportunity to focus much needed energy and attention on our middle grades and better support the development of our students at this crucial time in their lives. The Reimagining team has focused on a few high leverage areas and activities that can catalyze transformation in our system. This is one of them. I hope we can continue to engage families in creating more relevant and experiential learning for these ages while ensuring a safe and supportive environment. Adolescence is a fascinating time that weaves together childhood and adulthood when bodies are changing, minds are opening, and disillusionment can be around every corner. We need to meet our students where they are and engage them in designing their education future. We need to understand and unpack the value our schools bring to students and families. There's much more work to do, but adopting this resolution and the actions it sets in motion is an important first step. Thank you, Vice President Noble. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Abeta, taking us through the reading of this resolution and talking to us a little bit about what we're doing as far as next steps is Dr. Garcia, not only my mentor, but I'm sure many of our mentors. And I'm extremely excited about this kickoff, this campaign. I think it's something that is much needed. It's going to help educate our community. It's going to help educate our students. It's also going to help educate our staff members. And I think it's very important for everyone involved to understand the options that are available, the innovative programming that's taking place, and the great things happening at our middle schools. So, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Superintendent Chavez, President Abeta. It's good to see you. Secretary Carmen Gonzalez. I was going to say before I keep going, Superintendent Chavez, I see you're following in my footsteps and forgetting people's names. I mean, that's just like, all of a sudden, like, I know who you are, and I cannot pull that
I was
name.
drawing a blank, to
I
be
know,
quite
that's-
honest.
That's the worst when that happens. But I could relate being there and forgetting people's, just cannot be able to pull that name. It's very good to see you, Board Member Bose, and congratulations, Ms. Heffron, Dr. Heffron, right? Oh, well, we'll give you an honorary doctorate for serving on all the committees that you've been on. And
I accept.
You
Thank
accept,
you.
and our student board members. It's a pleasure to meet all of you and members of the cabinet and audience. It's just a real honor to be a part of this initiative. We're in our third year. And if you're new to the board or want to refresh yourself, you can go to the website, and there's actually a button for reimagining, and you can pick up from there and pick up where we've been. Some of the key, I'm trying to think, there's so many things that have come out of this, but some key actions, resolutions that this board has passed is one. I know President Abeta and Vice President Dr. Gonzalez, you all worked on student engagement and that resolution, which we're really excited about. And then if you recall, the bilingual education, the Renaissance, right? And super excited about that, and I hope we can hear an update on that at some point. All of this work has come out of inquiry and the inquiry process and hearing from all our stakeholders. We spent an entire year in inquiry. And all of this couldn't be possible without the leadership and the cooperation, the support of our superintendent, Larry Chavez. See, like who are you? Superintendent Chavez, thank you so much, for having the staff work with us and your support through some of the rocky parts as we're trying to figure out, where we're going. The board, for your encouragement. Vice President Noble, who's been the co-chair, and the wind beneath our wings on keeping us going when we get a little discouraged. So a shout out to her, and the cabinet and Deputy Superintendent. Thank you so much. All of you have been terrific, and of course the principals in our community that have participated in this. We have a new member who's going to be helping us a little bit this year, I hope a lot, and that's Chris Lopez, who has made this a project for some of his postgraduate work that he's doing as his capstone, and also seeing the applicability at the K-8 at Gonzales, as well as the more macro view of what we're doing in the district. So I'm excited to be working with him. So what's your pleasure, President? Do you want me just to read it, or what would you like?
I think you can just summarize it for us. That's because I think we've all gotten it.
Oh, gosh, but I was really looking forward to
Or you
reading
could
it.
read it if you want to read the whole thing.
I'm just teasing you.
To your discretion.
Okay, all right, no. So, you've looked at all of the whereases, but there are a few that I think merit, a little bit of emphasis. And, I think that we find that we have a disproportionate number of students that do leave. And I think it's because parents are afraid and they're worried for their kids. It's a really scary time. They come from the cocoon of elementary, and I think that there are people who have not stepped through our doors that remember what middle schools might have been like many years ago and don't even have a clue of the wonderful, amazing, great things that are happening in our schools. And so part of this effort is to better communicate what's already happening here. It's all part of Santa Fe Public Schools continuing to be a flagship district. So part of it is education in terms of recruitment and retention, but the other is what the superintendent noted, that it's not only about educating our public, but also better informing us as educators about meeting truly the needs of these kids, because they're not high school students and they're not elementary students, and they have very unique developmental needs. And unfortunately, I can tell you I'm old enough to remember when we were working on middle school philosophy, and I don't know if you know what demolished that, was NCLB. And guess what happened to our middle grades? They turned into little mini high schools at a time when kids need that the least. They need more exploration, more hands-on learning, a broader view of experiencing education in a whole different way. And one minute they're playing with dolls, and the next moment they have a crush, and then they're playing with cars, and then they want to drive, and their hormones all over the place, and sometimes they're clumsy because they're growing so fast, and it's a hard, hard time. And so we have an opportunity now to really look at the transformations that are going on with kids 10 to 14, physically, intellectually, emotionally, socially, and psychologically. We recognize there's a lot of work and a resurgence in this area. The Association for Middle Level Education have set standards, and we want to explore those as we look at the knowledge of young adolescent development, developmentally appropriate middle level curriculum, deep understanding of mid-level philosophy and school organization. And you can read through all of the whereases, but it is resolved, we hope, that we can form a mid-level council comprised of representatives from the 7 mid-level entities. The council will launch a communications effort to engage and educate constituents. And what you're going to see coming is going to be super exciting. I hope you'll find it that way. I remember when I was excited, and then I thought maybe I built it up too much when I talked to the superintendent about it, but I think you guys were a little excited with me, of rediscovering middle schools and K-8s in the Santa Fe Public Schools and inviting the public in to see what's already happening and, of course, what we're getting to embark on. So we're launching a communications campaign, and the council will be charged to bring back to the superintendent recommendations and a timeline for reimagining the delivery of mid-level education in Santa Fe Public Schools no later than the end of the fiscal year 2025. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll stand for questions.
Questions from the board?
God bless you.
Is there a motion from the board?
Can I ask a question? Excuse
Yes.
me. Superintendent Garcia, former superintendent. I had been visiting Milagro recently, and it had been brought to my attention that parents weren't choosing to go there anymore. Have you touched on that at all so far, and can give us any indication of what issue might come forward from that?
Well, you know, from the inquiry, I mean, I think that it was a forced marriage, first of all, when students from Alameda and Capshaw were in that building, and that wasn't the best facility to squish all those kids into, but it was the best solution that we had at the time, I imagine. It's right in the cusp of when I came on board. And so I think we lost some people then. And then I think the fear of the unknown, it's hard to build community in 2 grades, 7th and 8th grade. And here's a kicker that I had not really captured. Did that flow chart came from you, superintendent? But that flow chart that shows the feeders into Milagro, how many do you think there are, would you guess?
And a little background, that presentation that I gave for that flow chart to Dr. Garcia was presented to me by our music department. And that's when it blew me away like it blew you when you and I spoke.
And I can't remember, was it 9 or 10 or is it 12?
I think it's, what's that? 12?
Yeah, 12. Can you
feeders into-
imagine that school has 12 different, I mean, when you have a feeder pattern into a middle school, typically they might come from 3 schools. So then you're trying to bring together a community, 3 sets of cohorts of kids. 12 that are only going to be there for 2 years, it's scary. So when parents start thinking about their choices, and they don't also, they have misconceptions. They're thinking it's Alameda, or they're thinking it's Old Capshaw, and they really have not captured that it is a whole new, wonderful place with exciting, amazing things happening in that school, with an amazing facility. And so our job is to better communicate that. And I think when I spoke to you all, we had looked at the Ancorum gave us a grant. I think I presented that to you. And so that is what is going towards these activities as we reconnect with our community to rediscover. And so I don't want to give too much away, because I'd like you to be excited about when you see these new things coming up. I hope that you'll find them thrilling, and perhaps also with the superintendent visit these schools and see the amazing things that are happening.
Thank you.
Well, and Dr. Garcia, may I add, I remember taking around President Abeta and also Board Member Heffron, and getting them in the doors, I think changed even your guys' opinion about what was happening in our schools. And I think that's part of it, getting them into our schools, getting them adjusted, getting the education out there to everybody involved. But this was something that I clearly remember talking to both of you guys when we've taken you guys around to your schools when you guys became board members.
May I add to that, Superintendent, if you don't mind? Back to your question, Board Member Heffron and President Abeta. One of the things that we learned through the inquiry process is that parents really rely on what the teachers at the elementary have to say. And many of them are not aware of all the great programs in our schools. They don't know what's happening at Ortiz, or they don't know, what's happening at Milagro, or even some of the K-8s. And so that's the other effort, is educating internally as well about what's happening in those schools.
President Abeta?
Yes, Board Member Bozay.
I very gladly would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-2025-6, Reimagining Middle Schools Education.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you all. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be here this evening.
Okay, we have our consent items. There are 7 items on the consent. Is there any item that the board needs to pull from consent? Can I have a motion regarding the consent?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, that brings us to item C, which is Resolution 2024-2025-3, Technology Equipment Disposal.
Thank you, Board President Abeta. Let me make sure I have the correct disposal resolution. Yep, because we have 3. So once again, we're bringing this forward as we normally do, once or twice a year, requesting the retirement of our technology equipment that is either outdated or no longer in use. And before we start, I know these questions are always asked, so I came prepared because Dr. Neil Weaver has left the country, right, for a wedding, if I remember correctly, his daughter. So we want to congratulate his daughter and also Dr. Weaver and his family. So again, everything is disposed, nothing is kept, hard drives are demolished, there is no trace or any data left on the computers. So we make sure that we follow everything that is required for proper disposal. This includes Chromebooks, laptops, desktops, and printers.
Okay, questions from the board? Is there a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 2024-2025-3, Technology Equipment Disposal.
Is there a second? Second. We have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item D is Resolution 2024-2025-4, athletic equipment disposal.
Thank you, Board President Abeta, members of the board. Once again, a very similar resolution to dispose of athletic equipment that has either been broken, unrepairable, has outlived its use, but also uniforms that rodents may have eaten through. So as you guys remember, our facility that will be renovated as far as new district storage, this and the next resolution really is helping us clean that out to ensure that we're not keeping something on the books that no longer has any type of value. So we do ask for approval of the disposal of athletic equipment and uniforms that are no longer in use and have no value any longer.
Okay, questions from the board? Is there a motion?
I move approval of Resolution 2024-2025-4, athletic equipment disposal.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. E, Resolution 2024-2025-5, sustainability furniture disposal.
Thank you, Board President Abeta. Very similar to the previous one. We have items that are no longer in use or broken. Again, this is in our current storage facility that will be, I guess, demolished and rebuilt. So we ask for approval of resolution that is going to retire and dispose of furniture that is no longer in use.
Okay, questions from the board? Is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 2024-2025-5, retirement and disposal of furniture.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to item 6, union update. Is there anybody from the
Board
union here?
President Abeta, nobody from the union this evening.
Okay, let's go on to item 7, our student board members' announcements and follow-up.
Okay, so for Capitol High School, for the past 2 weeks, they had a successful Avid showcase from educators from across the state visited Capitol High School to see how they support all students in preparing for college and career opportunities. Ms. Veal met with seniors who are interested in graduating with the bilingual seal this May. They have over 70 students who are planning to pursue the bilingual seal. They also had 2 successful college visits, including a group that visited New Mexico Highlands University, as well as a group that visited NMSU, New Mexico Tech, and Western New Mexico University. Finally, they will be hosting their annual resource fair and fall festival on October 30th. For Santa Fe High School, the marching band's annual fundraiser was at the Santa Fe Car Show at Harley-Davidson 2 weekends ago. Additionally, our marching band will compete in competitions every weekend throughout October. Good luck, Demon Band. Homecoming will be happening next week, and the theme is Enchanted Garden. Students from the Santa Fe High School Orchestra participated in the Honor Orchestra in Los Alamos last Friday. Congratulations on this achievement.
And then for ECO, ECO had a successful car show that raised just over $4,000 to be used to send students to local and national Skills USA competitions. And Early College Opportunities High School hosted a successful and informative Title I night for families. For Desert Sage Academy hosted a successful and informative Title I night for families. And Desert Sage continues to support students with credit recovery. And then for Mandela, Mandela hosted their first coffee with the principal on October 7th. During that time, representatives from Aiglon College in Switzerland shared about their history and philosophy as a fellow international baccalaureate school and invited us to visit someday. Niche just released their best high school rankings, and they placed Mandela as number 2 in New Mexico, which goes along with U.S. News' ranking of number 3. Our natural helpers went on a 2-day retreat to Camp Stoney last week and learned skills for student advocacy and intervention. We are grateful for SFPS coordinator Sabra Romero and her tutoring placements. With her help, we have many adult tutors working after school and in our advisory classes. This, coupled with the 11th and 12th grade peer tutoring program, has created a lot of support for students. And Mr. Griot writes that senior Lucas Robbins has been named a commended student in the 2025 National Merit Scholarship Program.
Wow. Thank you.
Before you move on, Mr. President, may I?
Yes.
I spoke to him outside when we were watching the band. He didn't mention it, so I'm going to prod him. Mr. Park, would you want to tell us about the announcement and your award?
So for the 2024 Mayor's Art Award, I was selected for Santa Fe, and so I received $1,000 as well as a glass plate, and this was for being nominated an outstanding artist for the arts.
Congratulations. That's great. All right. Anything else from our student board members? Okay, well, let's see if any of the board members can top that. Do we have anything?
President Abeyta.
Yes.
I can't compete with that. I didn't win any awards this week. But I did attend the Honors Orchestra presentation, or, performance last week in Los Alamos. It was middle school and high school honors orchestra for the North Central region, I think, something like that. There were many, many students from Santa Fe Public Schools represented there. It was an incredible performance, and shout out to I think about a third of the students in the middle school honors orchestra were from El Dorado. They have a really phenomenal orchestra program there as well as band. So just wanted to recognize all of the students from SFPS that did an awesome job at that performance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the board?
President Abeyta, I would like to just make sure everyone has seen the recent edition of the Santa Fe Reporter, which features an incredibly wonderful, positive review of what's been happening at Nava Elementary, the improvement in math and reading that they've experienced over the last few years. To this year specifically has been remarkable, and I know we are hoping that principal might share his leadership with other principals at the other elementary schools, because their performance has been outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Abeyta. I didn't have any. I think I've caught a second wind, and so I'll have some real quick ones. So again, just want to make note, I know I shared with you guys, we had our study session on AI, and little did we know, a week later, Occidental College talked about our plan as far as how we're going to roll out artificial intelligence to the district, and we were notified because one of our HR employees has a daughter attending, and she was shocked during that class that her hometown, her homeschool district was announced. My last one, again, I'm going to just keep them brief tonight. I think it was yesterday, wasn't it, Deputy Superintendent Romero, our visit at the Child Care Center? I'm catching up. Yesterday, we had a visit from our Early Childhood Education Division, ECECD, and some special guests, faculty, not students, but faculty from Harvard University came out to New Mexico. They identified our child care program as a model program. They wanted to come out and visit, take a look at it, see what we were doing, because they mentioned to us during that visit, this is a model that should be spread across not only New Mexico, but the United States, and something they're going to take back with them and try to advocate to really help solve the problems that it's helped us address. Recruitment, retention, addressing education in the early years of life. They were blown away, nothing but great compliments. And again, they did the research, and they identified our program as the model program in the state of New Mexico that they wanted to come in and visit. So wonderful job with Dr. Aswada, Deputy Superintendent Romero, everybody involved, because I think it has paid dividends. They were blown away when we started talking about what it's done as far as retention and recruitment. As we all know, the vacancy rate across the U.S. for teachers is 16 to 20%, and we are currently sitting at 2.5%. So again, I want to thank you guys as board members for investing in our employees, because it's paying off for our students. We can put teachers in front of each and every one of them. I was just, the Deputy Superintendent and I received a request and an email from Dr. Aswada, who's the director of the center, asking us for permission to start a bilingual cohort in the very near future. So again, starting to continue down that path of innovation and really providing high quality, low cost childcare for our employees.
Thank you. Okay, we have our presentation, SFPS's Assessment Results and Systems of Support. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Abeyta. We've been waiting for this. I think you guys have been waiting for this. So we are finally at the moment in time where we can start talking about some of the data that we've been hinting at and we've been discussing. So taking us through the presentation tonight is Deputy Superintendent Vanessa Romero and also our Chief of Assessment and Accountability, Beata Thorstensen. And again, what a great team they make as far as really driving instruction, looking at data to make quick decisions, but also calculated decisions, but also the team that they work with and support this initiative. So it's not a one-man show. It's not a three-person show. It's a group effort, and we want to acknowledge the principals, the teachers, the students that have really bought into this because we're starting to see growth and improvement a little quicker than we thought. And I've put a lot of pressure on the team over there about showing results, and I think we're on just the tip of the iceberg as we move forward. So if you guys please go ahead and begin.
Good evening, President Abeyta, board members, Superintendent Chavez. I'm really excited for this presentation tonight. I'm hoping that you ask me lots of questions at the end as we go through it. And Deputy Superintendent Romero and I are going to tag team a little bit as we go through this, so there'll be times when I hand off and she hands back. I'm going to go ahead and start by talking a little bit about the Assessment and Accountability Department, because this is sort of the first opportunity I've had to be in front of you in a comprehensive way. And we've revised the department a little bit. We've reorganized it a little bit over the last couple of years. And really, our job has four main parts. So the first one is that we are responsible for implementing the required assessments under ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, and those required by the state. These are our summative assessments that we give once a year. These are the assessment results for proficiency that are largely reported widely. So my office is responsible for making sure that that runs smoothly. We're also responsible for selecting and implementing interim assessments. These are assessments that support schools in determining whether or not students are making growth over the course of the year, and also to support the work of teaching and learning, and to help them understand how things are working with their initiatives. The third thing that we do is that we spend a lot of time monitoring and reviewing data and providing advice around policy related to accountability for the state and district level. So we spend a lot of time going through the data produced by PED and verifying that data. We spend a lot of time working with the Public Education Department as they're crafting policy to really make sure that it is allowing students to shine in the best possible ways. And then the fourth thing that my office is really responsible for doing is protecting instructional time. Assessment is a huge part of the annual responsibility of schools, and it can take up a large amount of time. So one of the things that we have been actively doing over the last 2 years is really looking for those opportunities where we can reduce that burden wherever possible, but still provide information that folks need in order to make valid decisions. We've also spent a concerted effort to partner within other departments, teaching and learning being the primary one. If assessment data isn't being used actively, then it serves little purpose. And so our goal is to make these partnerships and make sure that the data we're producing is useful to folks, and to help them collect any and all data they would need for reporting or for grants or anything like that. So we do all of those things. I'm going to talk tonight about a balanced assessment system. That's a little different than just giving a data presentation, because I wanted to highlight the fact that the summative data, the data that's widely reported, is sort of the top of the pyramid, but there's a whole lot going on underneath that is oftentimes more descriptive of what's happening in schools than just the summative data. So a balanced assessment system is really about the whole package. So at the top we have our summative assessments, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. We also then have our interim assessments, which measure growth. And then the biggest piece of this pyramid, where teachers get the most valuable data for day-to-day instructional materials, are formative assessments. It is really exciting to be able to work in a district that has taken on the task of building these formative assessments as a district, the way Santa Fe Public Schools has. And Deputy Superintendent Romero is going to talk about those in the context of our work. And we're actually going to reverse the pyramid a little bit. So we're going to start with formative assessments because that's such a huge chunk of the work. And then we'll get into summative and interim. So again, what are our summative assessments? NMASA. That's the big one we talk about for ELA and math. It's given in both English and Spanish in grades 3 through 8. The SAT is given in high school in grade 11. That's for language arts and mathematics in English and Spanish. We also give the ASR, that's our science test. That's given in grades 5, 8, and 11. And then we have the access test, which is an English language proficiency test for Spanish-speaking students. Those are all part of our summative assessment system. The interim assessments we give iStation in grades K2, that's required by the state and selected by the state. And then we give the iReady assessment in English, in language arts and math in grades 3 through 12. We give these assessments 3 times a year. We give iStation monthly, and they provide growth data over time. But the biggest piece is the formative assessments. Those formative assessments the district really took on last year and has developed some really fantastic components for them. So I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Romero to talk about how this fits into the larger picture of standards-based instruction.
Good evening, Board President Beta, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. This just goes through our timeline over the past 4 years on our work around standards-based instruction. We've presented many times just on standards-based grading and instruction, but this year we are focusing as a district on 5 key areas, and that's ensuring that kids are exposed to grade level standard, that instruction is engaging, that there's teacher clarity, and what that means is there's learning targets posted on the board, and as a teacher clearly communicating that learning target to students, and then of course can students articulate what they're learning in class, maximizing our PLCs and using that time over the past year and a half to develop the common formative assessments, which I'll discuss in a bit, but that is what drives our instructions in a quicker way, so there's immediate feedback to our teachers so that they can adjust. And then intentional feedback, and that is our teachers providing students feedback on their learning, but also our principals giving teachers feedback on their teaching. And I really want to celebrate the team creating this beautiful walkthrough that is focused on these 5 areas. So when we've started our instructional rounds and visiting classrooms, we are focusing on these areas, and at the same time, all teachers have had professional development around these areas, so they know what we're looking for and when we walk into their class.
And Deputy Superintendent, if you can just mention quickly, at the start of the school year, how many classrooms you and your team visited? I think it's important because it shows that district staff are in schools, are in classrooms.
And yes, and that's on this slide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So the walkthrough was developed over the summer with the assistant superintendents, with every department, bilingual, special ed, language and culture, because we all have, when we visit classes, we all have things that we need to see, and engagement was huge. But with that, once the walkthrough was developed, part of the work over the summer was sitting with principals and sharing the form, and it's all live. So every principal can go in and see how many walkthroughs are happening. But when we started this work in September, there were about 300 walkthroughs, and that is our commitment as an instructional team from the district in teaching and learning, that we need to go in and provide support to the principals. And now I asked Mr. Hagley today, how many walkthroughs have we had since September? 414. So as I mentioned, our goal is to really be there and provide support, and the whole notion of the walkthrough is, what are the patterns, right? We're trying our best to make the walkthrough about 8 minutes per class, even less if we can get there. we come outside, we debrief with our principals, so we're broken up into cohorts, so we're visiting each other's schools. But it offers two things. We're looking at big patterns. As a school, what are some areas that need support with instruction? But then also, there may be a teacher that is doing amazing things. And so what type of coaching are you providing that teacher? And maybe encouraging that teacher to share with the staff. Or you may have a teacher that's struggling. And so the walkthrough serves those two purposes.
And if I can add, I know this model is starting to be replicated within our own district. Our fine arts coordinator and one of our special assistants, Mr. Howard Exner, they go now and visit schools to go through the art and music classrooms. So not only is it happening from the instructional team, but we're seeing it happening in departments now.
And part of the work, as I said, we're providing continuous professional development. So whatever the principal maybe identifies with the team, we're making it our, we're supporting them by providing the professional development. So if they are struggling, let's say, with student engagement, who from C&I, the department, can go out and provide the professional development to the team. We've had schools reach out and say, PLCs, professional learning communities, we need support in how we're organizing it as teams and looking at student data or developing formative assessments. We have Robin Noble go out. So we have members from the team, or they're struggling with their bilingual program. So we'll have people from the bilingual program go out and support the team. So that is our focus and our commitment. And as I said, I don't know if it's the next slide, we'll talk a little later. A lot of the work was teachers collaborating to develop the common formative assessments. And I'll share an example later on, but that has been a great success. In a group of teachers have gotten together, they look at a standard and they pull an item or create an item, a test item, so that a teacher can log into the website and say, it's a 6th grade standard, here's the math problem that looks like a student nearing proficiency, but somebody who's proficient. And so we provide examples, and that's been a lot of work, and we're still developing and refining. But I think with teachers having that opportunity to collaborate and refine has really changed instruction, because they're having conversations that are deep.
And just to add to your PLC work around it, again, that article, that teacher mentioned PLC work with other schools. So they've done a great job of matching up schools that may only have one teacher per grade level. So they're not isolated on an island any longer. They work with other schools. So I think it's a model, again, that other districts around the state could replicate, because there are a lot of small districts, a lot of small schools with one teacher per grade level, or maybe a combo class. By teaming them up, they have that ability to work collaboratively with a colleague.
So to talk a little bit about the importance of formative assessment, over the last 25 years or so, the conversation in the United States has really been about summative assessments and measuring student proficiency, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But during the pandemic, there was an interesting change in discourse nationwide, which was really coming back to this notion that in order to understand where students are every day and understanding whether or not they are truly able to demonstrate mastery of a standard. So what is the success criteria? What does it look like? What does it feel like? That can't be done through these summative assessments, and it has to be done on the ground through teachers, through formative assessment. And it's been a really great movement nationwide. And I haven't been in a district where we've taken it on district-wide, so this is really, really exciting. But the best formative assessment is not one we buy off the shelf. It's built by teachers, and that's really, really important. There are companies who sell formative assessments, but they've built it against their standards, whereas we're building ours against our priority standards, so it is this. It is an integral process of the PLCs and standard-based instruction. Do we know if students are getting it? How do we know? How are they demonstrating it? What do they need next? Only formative assessments can really give you that. So building this has been a monumental task that teaching and learning has taken on, and it's really impressive.
And I just also want to add the support that Beata has been offering to our school sites is been tremendous. If a principal says, I need somebody to come in and help us interpret the data, how do we read it, like what would be our next step? She's done amazing work, and we're super grateful in that she can go in and sit with teams of teachers and just identify areas or standards that they may need to focus on. So we appreciate that. I'm going to try to, I don't know, can you open up grade 6? I'm sorry, the last link. This is an example of a 6th grade assessment blueprint that teachers created together for math. And I'm blind, I can't read, so I'm gonna, so the standard is fluently divide multi-digit numbers using the standard algorithm. And so they took the standard, and 6th grade math teachers got together. They placed the learning target, but then as I mentioned, they also included the success criteria, I can, students being able to articulate their learning. They created an example of if a student is nearing proficient, examples of how they could solve the math problem. And if you scroll down just a little bit more. Next page. Then they created examples of what it would be at a level 3, meaning a student is proficient and they understand all the steps. And if you scroll further down, we also have these learning targets and assessment blueprints in Spanish for our bilingual community. So this has been a lot of work, a lot of collaborating, and so we're just super excited about what teachers have done and the conversations they're having around instruction.
I think if I can just point out, I think you hear it in the presentation over and over. It's the work of our teachers. It's not, top down. It's been collaborative, and it's been a long road, but we want to thank those educators who bought in early and have adopted this initiative, because we're seeing those results as we get into some of the data.
All right, that's a wonderful transition to get into the data itself. So this is what you've been waiting for. So this is our preliminary summative assessment data for the entire district, all grades. And this is looking at the whole district as a whole as compared to the state. Now, these are preliminary numbers. They are subject to final adjustment by the Public Education Department when they publish them on New Mexico Vistas, depending on how they round and things like that. So these are preliminary. But in language arts, we are officially above the state average. And this is a tremendous gain for us. And in total, we are up 3 points this year, district-wide. So again, all grades, all schools, all students, we're up 3%. That's actually a large gain for a district this size. The state was flat, so we are outpacing the state when it comes to language arts. When it comes to math, the state trend is down. The state dropped 2%. We had a much less impactful drop. With rounding, it looks like a whole percent. Without rounding, it's less than 1%. And that's important to me. But again, we are moving against the state trend. And as we're looking at growth data, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, we think we are getting to a point within our proficiency bands that we're going to see some larger movement in the future. But this is exciting news. That I believe, correct me, Superintendent Chavez, if I'm wrong, this is the first time we're above the state average in language arts. Mm-hmm. So that's a tremendous piece for us. So here's some bright spots. We talked about NAVA. So I'm going to talk about NAVA some more. NAVA and El Dorado were two schools that both had substantive gains in both ELA and mathematics across the board. But other schools, and these are just a sampling, there are many other schools showed growth this year, but Nina Otero had 10% growth in math. That's huge. Chaparral had 7% growth. In math, Ramirez Thomas showed 6% growth in math. Sweeney had 6% growth, and Carlos Gilbert had 5%. And again, these are huge. And in fact, NAVA, when we originally reported NAVA for mathematics, we were targeting 11% growth. We've gotten some new information. It does look like it's actually going to be 12. So it's a little bit higher than we even thought, which is fantastic. So we're seeing some tremendous gains in some of our schools, and this is really quite exciting. However, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about that are things that can affect our proficiency long term. So one of the things that affects our proficiency quite a bit is school size. We have some very small schools. And what this means is that small changes in the numbers of students who are proficient can have disproportionately large changes to percent proficient. So it may only be a handful of students that are changing proficiency, but it can have a disproportionate negative and positive effect. There are some other things that the Public Education Department does to our raw data that affect the results. The first one is what's known as full academic year conditioning. This one actually, it makes a lot of sense. When they take the raw data, one of the things that they look for is they look for the students that have spent the majority of a school year in a single location. And those schools are only responsible for those students that they spent the majority of the year with. So students that were only there a couple of weeks, for example, are not included in the final proficiencies, for or against. So they pull those students out, and the only students included are those who've spent the majority of the academic year with that school. So that can change some of our proficiencies from the raw proficiencies to what we see now. The second one is actually a critical one to talk about, and that is attenuation. Under federal and state law, all students must participate in our summative assessment system in grades 3 through 8, and once in high school, which we do in grade 11. They must participate in ELA and math. Federal law, which was put into place under No Child Left Behind, began this process by saying that all students had to participate. That continued into ESSA, and state law has required this since 2013. Pragmatically, what this means is that at least 95% of students must participate for a school to have reached full participation. Under the Every Student Succeeds Act, the Public Education Department is required to enact consequences for schools that fail to test at least 95% of their students. The consequences that our state has chosen is attenuation. And what this is that they prorate proficiency downward by the proportion of untested students. So if they fail to meet 95% in ELA or math or both, those proficiencies are prorated downwards by the proportion of untested students. The larger that proportion, the bigger the hit, and actually, the way it works, the higher their initial proficiency, the bigger the impact. This is then published as actual proficiency without any notes. So it's just published as actual. This attenuated proficiency our small schools, I should say, are very vulnerable to this attenuation. So I'll give you a concrete example. I'll talk about Tasuke. Tasuke has 61 students right now, thereabouts, K6. In the tested grades, they have about 39. 95% of 39 students is about 1.85. So if they fail to test 2 of those students, they fall underneath this 95% threshold, and they have attenuated proficiency. So this is something that our small schools are very, very vulnerable to, and why it's so important that all students participate in these summative assessments. So how is it going to be used this year? Summative data, both proficiency and growth, is going to be used as part of the annual school ratings on New Mexico Vista. Proficiency and growth from our summative assessments make up the lion's share of the points on those school rating systems. They also include things like attendance and college and career readiness and graduation, but proficiency and growth are the lion's share of the points. Vistas this year will be published hopefully no later than November 15th. That's the deadline the Public Education Department has set for itself.
And
But-
Beata, before
Yes.
you go on, no, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
I just want to mention to our board members how important this this slide is and what we discussed moving forward, because we've been talking about it internally for about 2 years now. Sounds like the state of New Mexico has started to move in that direction as well. We even participated in an interview with the Santa Fe New Mexican last school year. So it shows you that we've been on this piece, growth and growth data, because I think it's important. I also think it's an opportunity not only for us, but the state to celebrate students making growth. Just because they're not proficient does not mean they're not making academic gains. Some students are 2, 3, 4 years behind their peers at their grade level, but they are making a year worth of growth, 2 years worth of growth. They're just not proficient yet. That doesn't mean they're not going to get there. It's just going to take a little longer. So as we go through this information, I think this is something that we've used as far as a mechanism to drive instruction and help inform our teachers, our students, and our parents.
Thank you. I'm trying to see which bullets you didn't hit. No. So it really is about a growth mindset as a district. We encourage growth mindset in our students. We also need to have this mindset as adults working in the system. We may not have hit our proficiency targets yet, but what is our progress towards those targets? And also it shows teachers progress that students are making throughout the year that may not be recognized in just a did I pass or did I not pass, was I proficient or not kind of score. And it removes the pressure to focus on what we have long unfortunately called bubble students, students who are close to proficiency, those students that if we just get them over the line, it'll move our numbers. We want to focus on all kids, not just those who are close. And in addition, starting this year, the Public Education Department has changed how it's going to measure growth as part of its accountability system. In years past, and we've had objections to this over time, they looked at the difference between third grade performance in 2022-23 and third grade performance in 23-24, and they did a simple calculation. And we've argued for a long time those are different kids. They're changing that this year. And now when they look at growth, they are looking at the growth of individual students using a process called student growth percentiles. So this work that we started more than a year ago is actually going to pay off on an accountability platform as well, because the Public Education Department is now looking at individual student growth. So that's what we're doing. As a district, our targets, rather than just looking at a straight proficiency target, our targets are about growth. And our goal for every student is that they move to the next highest proficiency band. And we do this by growth targets. So what does this look like? It looks like this. It looks like a ladder. And sometimes I call this bucket moving. So we want to move students from one performance band to the next until we hit advanced. And so they may not be proficient, but if they're moving from novice to nearing proficient, that's a win. They are making more than a year's growth in a year's time, and we are getting them caught up. And I'm going to show you how powerful this really is with our own data. So, what does it look like? This is Santa Fe Public Schools data from last year. This is the impact of students meeting their stretch growth targets on their proficiency. And in this chart, green is good. And we start with fall and spring, and the difference between fall and spring for students who met those stretch growth targets is profound. We're going to start with reading. It's more powerful in the lower grades, but it's still profound in the upper grades. And it's even more profound in math. So if we look at math and we look at the impact that it has particularly on the upper grades, if students are meeting those targets, they are moving into proficiency. This is an incredibly powerful tool for us with our interim assessment, which is the iReady assessment. This assessment is different than interim assessments we've used in the past. We started with this last year. Prior to that, we had been using the state IMESA assessment. One of the big challenges we found with that assessment is that it did not do a very good job of predicting summative outcomes. In fact, it over-predicted outcomes. And so it would tell us something like, we think that 50% of our students are going to be proficient on our summative assessment based on our end-of-year test, and it would turn out that only 40% of students were proficient. That is actually really damaging to the school improvement process. We make a lot of erroneous assumptions when we see that kind of growth, but we don't see it manifest on our summative assessment. So we made a decision to change to the iReady assessment. And what we have is we have data that shows that the iReady assessment does an excellent job of predicting summative outcomes. What this chart looks like with a lot of little numbers is this is the correlation between a student's iReady score and their summative score on NMESA. This is how many times they overlap. The industry that we, as an industry, what we look for, a test with good, what we call predictive validity, has that prediction set at 70%. And so there's, see this line at 70? The iReady is well above that. And so we can feel confident, going back for a second, that the students in green will be proficient. And we saw this manifest with our own data. So this growth target is really, really important as we move forward. So we are going to be focusing this entire year and beyond on students moving from one proficiency band to the next, rather than that pass or fail proficiency mark. And in doing so, our goal is to get all of the students on the pathway to proficiency, not just those who are close. Now, I'm going to change tacks for a little bit because I want to end on a really high note. And this is a totally different piece of data. Mm-hmm. But as you are well aware, one of our chief priorities in this district has been attendance. It's been one of your chief priorities for a long time. And chronic absenteeism has been a challenge for us. Over the last couple of years, our chronic absenteeism has hovered at about the 50% mark. And we've had a lot of work. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work. Superintendent Chavez has done a tremendous amount of work. Crystal Ibarra and her team have done, her attendance teams have done really huge yeoman's work to try to really improve our attendance numbers and make school a better place to be. And I have some really exciting data to show. So this is new from the Public Education Department, and this data shows the change in chronic absenteeism here at Santa Fe Public Schools over the last year. And it was reported by the PED to the Legislative Education Study Committee and the Legislative Finance Committee, and they said 30%. Turns out, or they had said 20%, down to 30, that we had reduced it to 30%. It turns out it was better than that. So we overall had a 22.5% reduction in chronic absenteeism in Santa Fe Public Schools in 1 year. That is functionally almost cutting it in half. So I wanted to end on that super high note.
Yeah. And it's on the radar of the U.S. Department of Education as well for making a huge difference in addressing chronic absenteeism. So again, great presentation. I know we throw a lot at you, but we had been waiting a long time to present this data to you guys again. Just want to put caution out there. Things could change when the official data comes out from the state of New Mexico. We're pretty confident it's going to remain somewhere, if not exactly what we presented to you. So again, want to thank you guys all of the staff, instructional staff, principals, teachers, students, parents, you guys, because without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. So with that, we'll stand for questions.
Questions from the board or comments?
President Abeyta, I'd like to make a comment. Once again, Deputy Superintendent Romero and I visited the elementary schools that are in my district, and as a new board member, that was a real eye-opening experience. And I just wanted to congratulate those schools and let the public understand that we witnessed several grades where their teachers are breaking down the students in groups of 2, 3, 4 maybe, as they are creating a mindset of growth. Not embarrassing a student who's behind, not at a 3rd grade level, for instance, only at a 1st, but making that student comfortable in a group setting, knowing that they are going to grow and achieve and be successful. So the positive was emphasized in many of the classes I observed versus the negative. And I wanted to applaud the teachers and principals, obviously, for also making that happen. It was really eye-opening, and I encourage the public to understand that that really is happening in our schools right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Abeta?
Yes, Board Member Posey.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect place to end that presentation. I think the tagline has been, you know, you can't learn if you're not in school, and so you see scores improving when more kids are attending school regularly. So that's wonderful, and kudos to everyone who's been a part of making that happen. Mostly my comments are around, you know, I remember it's been a few years that we've named as a board priority having professional development be really kind of teacher-driven. Like, what is it that they need? And you all have created a pathway for teachers to tell you what they need. And you're making sure, and they're making sure that it's what the students need. And it's phenomenal how much this has changed, and I love the collaboration that's happening. I love the openness. I love the cabinet in schools, and the support being given, the teachers' voices being heard, and that the whole formative assessments piece as well. I mean, teachers do this work because it's not for the pay, and it's not because it's easy, but because they care about what happens in the classrooms. And so giving teachers the opportunity to build those tests and to know their students more than any from the box, off the shelf, you know, for-profit company making a test, like, that's what it's about. And sure, those assessments have a place, but I'm really, really grateful that it's not the whole picture here, and that you are supporting the teachers to develop their own assessments. Kudos, and I think every time we talk about PLCs, I talk about how much I love them, because I remember when we were all online during COVID, and it was inventing how to do this thing that no one had ever done before. And I don't know when PLCs actually started, but I remember saying, are teachers talking to each other? Like, if something's working, are they sharing that? And how are they sharing that? And I see more and more of that. And I'm so thrilled and so proud of all the work that's being done. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez.
Excuse me. President Abeta, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, that was a great presentation. When I was a teacher, formative assessments were where it was at. I didn't really care that much about what the standardized tests gave me, but the formative assessments were really where it was at. And you're focusing on growth is perfect to me. I mean, I think No Child Left Behind left a lot of kids behind. So it's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. And this presentation I was impressed, and what I really take from it is what Board Member Jose said. We're not just accepting that this is the test, these are the results. We're digging into why, how. Like I said, this was a really good presentation, and I've been on the board a couple of years and never quite understood. And tonight, I feel like I'm going to leave much more informed and feeling a lot better about what we're doing. And especially when people say, well, I read this and this result in the paper, what's going on? There's a lot more to it. And this is a tough district, given this evening you have schools from Tesuque with 60 kids, and Sweeney, everything in between. You have our high schools, our middle schools. And like I said, I was just really impressed with this presentation this evening, and it was well done and very informative. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
President Abeta, may I ask another question, please?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's to inform me and educate me, please. Professional learning communities, can you explain exactly what that means to me? Thank you.
Sure. Professional Learning Communities was developed by Rick DeFore, which you probably don't care about, but it's 4 critical questions. What is it that we want students to learn? What are we going to do if they don't know? What do we do if they do? And forgetting the fourth one, sorry, got nervous. But the whole idea is these 4 critical questions so that when a grade level team, when first grade teachers are sitting together, that's what drives the conversation that they're having. Or when math teachers get together and they're discussing algebra and it requires them to look at student work or our lesson plans, and it's those 4 questions drive the conversation because, I mean, of course, and it happens all the time. I mean, even with us, when we meet as an instructional team, we can get off task and we're talking about duties or recess or maybe talking about student behavior. We're trying to create this sacred time for teachers to really focus on student work, standards, common formative assessments, and adjusting their instruction for learning. So we've had lots of professional development around professional learning community. Does that answer?
It does. And can I also ask, is the social emotional well-being of the student considered at any time during these learning community sessions?
That's another.
Is that part of the teacher
that's-
conversation?
It's a wellness team, so
Okay.
every school also has a wellness team, and part of the wellness team is the nurse, the counselor, the principal. And with that, if a teacher identifies a kid that's struggling with social emotional, the teacher would refer that student to that particular team, or they're struggling with absences. So they go to the wellness team, and then the wellness team develops a plan of action to support that teacher and the student. So those are weekly meetings on top of professional learning community.
Thank you very much. That does explain it a lot. Thank you.
And as you guys can see, cross-collaboration between departments is paying off. I think this might be the first time Beata's in front of you, but very knowledgeable, secret weapon of ours. As you guys can see, it's just not that we're picking things and ideas out of the air. It's data-driven. There are discussions about where we have to make adjustments, pivot, or what's working well. So again, as we're talking about this even goes into bilingual programming. We just had a meeting about bilingual data. So again, it's reviewing as a district team to help inform our educators and our students. But again, great team, and I know it took a little longer than normal to have somebody present of this caliber, but Beata's been around the state in multiple districts at the public education department, so very fortunate to recruit her over to Santa Fe Public Schools.
I remember the question. What do we do when a student isn't learning or they don't know? That's huge.
Okay. So we have one official item under board discussion and possible action, which is the audit committee appointment from board member Heffron.
Thank you very much, President Abeyta and fellow board members. Superintendent Chavez, I have been able to recruit, I'm happy to say, a woman I've known for several years now. Her name is Sarah Thalen, also known as Janie. She is a registered nurse, and she has been a member of the United States Navy Nursing Squad, Nursing Corps officer for most of her life, including duty in Kuwait and other places. Yes, she has a degree, a BS in nursing, a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. She also has a Master's of Science in Nursing from the University of Virginia. As a part of her training with the military, by the way, she had to establish Department of Defense budgets for each of her units and departments that she was in charge of. In other words, federal money budgets, huge numbers, and making sure her fiscal year, the money was well spent, that it was spent, and that there were no cost overruns. So I'm happy to welcome her to the audit committee.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to appoint her to the audit committee?
Is that what I do?
I believe
Thank you
so.
very much for my training. Yes. I would like to move that Sarah Thalen, also known as Janie Thalen, be appointed to the audit committee for the school board.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, other board discussion. Dr. Gonzalez.
President Abeyta, last meeting, it looked like I didn't have an audit committee member, And I thought that we had selected them in the summer. But anyway, Margot Shirley is my representative. And she's been on it for a number of years.
Okay, do we need to
No,
officially
I
reappoint?
think we
or-
did.
But in the paperwork last week
Okay,
said it
just,
did.
yeah, just in case, let's go ahead and
Okay.
reappoint.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to appoint?
Yeah, I'd like to appoint Margot Shirley to the audit committee.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, any other board discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to mention, I know AI came up a little bit earlier today, and I know that since our last meeting, SFPS has been in at least the New Mexican for releasing our AI policy, and I wanted to just share that I'm really pleased that SFPS is facing AI with an attitude of learning and growth rather than fear. Like, I'll give an example. This past month, I've learned that I can upload my biology study guide into ChatGPT and ask it to make questions in the style of IB exams. And that's something that has helped me improve my grade in biology and feel more prepared. So I really appreciate you guys. And I've done some work with the focus group as well, but I think we're definitely going down the right path with that, and I definitely appreciate that from all of you.
Well, and we appreciate the input. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, any other board discussion? Advanced planning, we've got a community CRC meeting scheduled for the 16th, audit on the 17th, and then a regular board meeting and possible executive session for the 24th.
Correct.
Okay. And then we also have our dates listed for November and December. So, yeah. Anything else before we adjourn?
Nothing on my end.
Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you.